Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Falcon number S76806. This is a MA series spindle. This would be called a swivel spindle, not a split spindle. A split spindle is a different type of spindle. This is a swivel spindle. Those two sides swivel independently of each other. And a swivel spindle is used, so there are different types of spindles for mortise locks. In context to a Falcon mortise lock, you would have a solid spindle or a swivel spindle. The difference really is, do you require independent operation of the trim on either side of the door in relation to the other side? So an example of that would be certainly in a storeroom lock, you need the inside always active and you need the outside always fixed. You couldn't use a solid spindle in that because the hub that is making rigid the exterior lever would also therefore keep the inside lever rigid. So the outside hub would keep that, the hub governing the outside trim, the exterior trim, would keep that lever rigid, while the hub for the interior half of the lock, which is a different style hub, would permit that spindle to move, but it has to be able to move on its own. Now, an example of where you would use a solid spindle would be like a passage set. Both sides are always going to work at all times. This is an unusual spindle in the sense that it's just simply less common because it's for door thicknesses for their MA locks from 1 7/8 to 2.5 inch, and that's it. There's a screw that runs through here. That's how you tighten it together after it is put through the lock. I'm not going to thread it all the way. It has some thread lock that's on here. I'll give you some basic dimensional properties. The key stock is 0.311 by 0.312, so it's 5/16. The length of one side, let's say the exterior side, would be 1.589. 1.589 of this piece alone. Let's switch to the screen view and we'll take a look at some supporting documentation. So this is the item that we are looking at. Okay, tells us 1 7/8 to 2.5 MA series locks. Not a tremendous amount of information there, but we can do a little deeper dive. The link to the manufacturer's page that's here will allow you to get to the price list, and as we fire up that document, we're going to be able to pull up the price list, or at least the current price list, and then we can do a search for S76806, and when we do that, we'll find a reference to this part number. Okay. Spindles 2 for lever on standard door thickness. So when they say 2, there's just 2 components that make a standard spindle. I don't know that I would necessarily put 2 in parentheses, because sometimes that infers you require 2 for the lock. That's not the case with this. It just happens to be 2 components, I suppose. Now, the reason we get to the price list is because there is a link to the Falcon service manual, the Master Index service manual on the manufacturer's page, and that will allow us to get to the MA series service manual. So the trouble with the service manual is nowhere in here does it list this spindle on its own. So let's just assume that we are working on a let's say a 581, a storeroom lock. Okay, so here's a lever storeroom lock, certainly going to require a swivel style spindle, but they don't refer to this. They do refer to part 9, which would be like the screw pack, which is where you're going to find the spindle, and very conveniently all of the other parts that they list. Well, part 9, they get to the screw pack, see page 37. Well, let's hop down to 37. Parts and accessories. Here are our screw packs. So your screw pack is S76300, if you have a standard door thickness, 1 3/8 to 1 7/8. S76301 would be for those thicker doors. So our spindle is literally here. Okay, and why it's not listed individually, I just can't say. However, it is sometimes very appropriate for you to investigate and look into the price list when you can, because there's a tremendous amount of information that is usually not in the full line product catalog, only because it would thoroughly bog down the catalog with unnecessary detail when you're trying to just simply present the lock and its primary components. Therefore, then the price list becomes the de facto location for all of the listings of other items, because the price list isn't bogged down by trying to present the product to a client. Let's wrap up this video on camera, but before we do that, that link to the manufacturer's page here is going to allow you to review not only all of the Falcon products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, the name Falcon is synonymous really with lock sets, and in particular, perhaps to some, synonymous with small format interchangeable core. After the patents, so Frank Best, the founder of Best Lock, literally invented the idea of the small format interchangeable core. And after the patents ran out and it was clearly obvious that there was a huge demand in the market for it, other people basically, in my opinion, cloned the technology. Falcon was possibly the first to do it, and I know that there was a lawsuit between the two companies because it was challenged that the Falcon variant of small format, which was slightly different, was not novel. It was not unique. It was not inherently different on its own and on its own merit. Well, Falcon won that case, and they have been producing small format cores ever since, as has countless other people. So if you think of Falcon, you might think of them as small format interchangeable core. And however, there's been a rebranding the last few years under the Allegiant umbrella. Things that used to be called Doromatic are now called Falcon. So I think it's still Falcon. It's a Doromatic exit device, but under the Falcon umbrella. So you might want to take a deep dive into their catalog to find not only locks, but closers, exit devices, things that I never really thought of Falcon for. I've always been a fan of Falcon because, well, number one, it was in the very early 1990s that a technical support person there in their keying department literally taught me how to combinate small format over the period of 2 telephone conversations. I've always been indebted to them. Another fun fact that I like about Falcon is when their product comes, it's always very well packaged. The material is treated and packaged in such a way that they have great pride in the product. And while I can't say that that's still the case, and I can't say that it's not, but it has always left me with the memory that Falcon is a company that cares about the fit and finish and the presentation to the client when they get their hands on it. Not that a spindle is going to be given that sort of same regal treatment as a $500 list price lock, but nonetheless. If you have any questions on the Falcon S76806 MA Series swivel spindle or any other Falcon product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.